What's up everybody, welcome back to another installment in the Armchair Analyst series, where we take a deep dive into a singular map and break down all the crucial moments you may have missed. In this episode, we're going to be analysing the fourth map in the series between SEOUL Dynasty and Dallas Fuel. Heading into this series-deciding battle on Route 66, both teams had won their only other respective matches on this map. In spite of their most recent loss against LA Valiant to close out their second week in Stage 2, it would be ludicrous to deny the improvements Dallas have made since the Overwatch League returned. From the signing of AKM, the transfer of Rascal, to the return of one of the most consistent Winstons in XQC, their performance thus far in Stage 2 has been a significant shade brighter than that of their Stage 1 efforts. This was all reasserted in their series against SEOUL earlier in the week, and that's exactly what we're here to discuss. Before we get into things, I just want to give a huge shout out to the team over at StatBanana for these high resolution aerial illustrations which we'll be using throughout the series. The quality is unparalleled and they're a great resource to more efficiently explain certain aspects of any given map. There's a link in the description which takes you to the website where you can find one of these for every single map in the game. Again, a huge thanks to those guys. If you're new here, this isn't what my voice always sounds like. I am currently recovering from a cold, so do keep that in mind moving forward, but with that, let's jump right into the analysis. To kick things off, as always, let's first establish the opposing compositions heading into the initial engagement. On the defensive side of things, Dallas are focusing their composition around one of their newest members in Rascal, who we can see is currently on the Sombra. The first point of Route 66 is one of the more interesting areas of any map in regard to health packs. There are only 4 possible entry points for an attacking team: the upper flank, the cave underneath, the main road, as well as the far flank on the right hand side of the payload. 2 of those options feature health packs, one mega, one minor. As we know, the mega in the cave is a spot where a lot of engagements can end up. You'll often see this used as a way for those in the backline to quickly escape if a team fight falls short. It's also a great flanking route. So the objective with Sombra here is to have her hack some of the integral health packs around the first checkpoint, with the 2 megas being of utmost importance as the payload progresses. Having control over both mega health packs not only negates a massive amount of healing for the attacking team, but it also ensures that the EMP is charging far more frequently than any other ultimate in the match. Most importantly, however, it serves as a way for the defenders to play slightly more aggressively, knowing that if they had to dive in, the opposition can't steal any health packs from under them. Taking a look at the attacking lineup, we can see that SEOUL decided to have Toby play on Mercy to start things off here. An odd choice for one of the best Lucio players in the world, but thinking about it, it definitely makes sense for point A of Route 66 than most other maps, as the time it takes to make it back to the cart can be hugely detrimental for both teams. A single res onto a high value target such as a Winston or Diva could be all that's needed to swing a team fight. Having Fleta on the McCree as opposed to the Widow, for instance, is also an interesting decision. It's clear that SEOUL did their research and watched Fuel's last match on Route 66, wherein they utilized the exact same defensive composition in a winning effort against Shanghai. Having a McCree to counter the dive composition by flashing the Tracer or flanking Sombra could make all the difference and certainly prove to be a supremely intelligent pick. Going into the first engagement, we can already see Fleta taking a small amount of poke damage and not being able to use the Mega Health Pack to heal up. Despite this, Munchkin takes it into his own hands to immediately foil the plans of Dallas, as he effortlessly gets behind them and picks off Custo with ease. Reacting in kind, the rest of SEOUL pressure forward in order to clean up the now weakened Dallas Fuel. SEOUL know that they can attack the location of the health packs on the map, negating all possible healing from Sombra, leaving Harry Hook to keep 2 tanks alive, which is no small feat for a Lucio. Mickey and Rascal are dispatched off soon after as the rest of the Dallas team backs up in hopes of re-engaging once they have regrouped. Heading into the fight, Rascal and Effect are the only 2 with defensive ults ready, but keep in mind that SEOUL has pushed the payload far enough already as to ensure that another Sombra ult is near impossible. All of the health packs are way out of position at this point. Rascal uses his EMP off screen and Dallas do find a few picks, however we can infer that the Sombra ult failed to reach the most important target, as Toby is able to instantaneously resurrect Fleta. With the disorganized positioning of a flustered Dallas Fuel, SEOUL is easily able to turn the team fight and secure the first checkpoint, all the while without utilizing an important ultimate. As we enter the second stretch of the map, ultimates are exchanged back and forth. Munchkin sticks Mickey with a pulse bomb which spurs the slightly delayed sound barrier from Harry Hook. As we can see by zooming in, Mickey's mech was completely taken out of commission by the pulse bomb, essentially forcing the self-destruct at an inopportune time, something that definitely could have been prevented had that sound barrier come in just a moment earlier. The efforts of Effect are immediately stunted as Munchkin trades the kill and Toby resurrects Jaehong. A hugely important target considering the Transcendence at the ready, and he puts it to good use immediately in order to keep Fleta alive through his Deadeye. What we see to counter it is a great effort from Mickey, who knows exactly what his role is in that circumstance. D.Va should be attempting to eat most DPS ults, however if her defense matrix is on cooldown or has been completely drained, she should still be the one making the move to defend her team as exemplified here. She can do that by simply standing in front of the ulting target, ensuring that no damage can fly past the huge hitbox. XQC activates his primal rage at an odd time as the engagement essentially fizzles out and he's forced to retreat shortly after. His intent was most likely to simply stall out the payload since everyone on Seoul was at full health, meaning a quick pick was unlikely. Probably just a communication error on the side of Dallas as XQC seemed unaware of his team's positioning, far away from the payload. As the payload advances, Toby once again comes in clutch as he minimizes the significance of Custer's pick onto Fleta. Jaehong hits some smooth shots onto Custer in return, shutting down one of the only sources of healing for Dallas, moving into what could be their last attempt at a defense for the second checkpoint. A few quick kills come out on the side of Dallas as they pressure onto the point and send Seoul back to the spawn to regroup. One thing to note, however, is that Munchkin was able to make it out with his life. Keep that in the back of your mind as the rest of this map plays out. Dallas choose to go with a typical high ground setup on defense here as Seoul push forward into the cave in order to try and compete at their altitude. Funnily enough, Fleta enters his Deadeye seemingly out of nowhere and is able to take out Custer before anyone can even really react to it. Sunba dives into a discorded Rascal and finds no difficulty in eliminating him and quickly going to work on the rest of the opposition. In the meantime, Munchkin pulls off a well-timed recall that negates the damage of a stuck pulse bomb dropped onto him by Effect. Yet again, simply surviving against the odds and even returning the kill onto Effect in kind. This is where he starts to light up and kicks off one of the best Tracer performances in the league to date. Picking up the second checkpoint, Fleta gets caught out of position and the rest of Seoul are forced into retreat momentarily. The observers wisely decide to keep the camera locked onto Munchkin as he advances further up the left-hand side of the final area. Dropping to a mere 8 health, he luckily finds the health pack waiting for him and is once again able to take down Effect, who in all likelihood only pressured into this room under the assumption that Munchkin was still at such a low HP. Continuing with the aggression before Effect can really even communicate with the rest of his team as to where Munchkin could be flanking, he is able to find the pulse bomb onto XQC and then quickly picks up a few more kills as Dallas back away. One of the only 15 kill streaks in the league to date comes to fruition with these picks as Munchkin has still been able to stay alive, and in large part, almost all of this survivability is due to his own positioning and skill, as we rarely see him being healed by Jaehong or Toby. Taking the upper position on top of the spawn from Dallas, they are now forced to turn their backs to the rest of Seoul to try and deal with Munchkin, especially considering how flustered XQC must be at this point in the match, after having been a pulse bomb magnet throughout. Despite the dive, he's able to stay alive yet again as another big engagement ensues on the cart. Again, noting the frustration hindering XQC right now, one of the best Winstons in the world makes the crucial mistake of swatting at an ulting McCree as he nudges Fleta into a better position so that he can take out Effect by surprise. Forced into a poor position, XQC is once again picked off by Munchkin to further apply salt to the wound. Moving ahead, Munchkin, a player that most likely should be focusing his efforts on supports and squishies, seems to have a vendetta against XQC this match as he connects one more pulse bomb and eliminates him from the fight yet again. I only mention the frustration of XQC simply due to how he handles himself in such situations on stream. If it were any other Winston, I would feel comfortable assuming that whilst they may be frustrated at this point, they would still do their best to keep their cool and help their team. He's resurrected, but it's short-lived as he is focused down for what feels like the 100th time this round. I wish we had the ability to change perspective and listen in on team comms at any point in time throughout a match, because I'm certain that once this pulse bomb landed, XQC was furious, and let's be real, individual frustration only serves to demoralize the rest of the team. Sunba picks up Custer, but the kill is traded pretty quickly as Dallas finally find their footing and send Seoul back for the time being. Continue to keep in mind though as Munchkin picks off Rascal, he is still yet to die. Attempting to take the high ground in their next push, Dallas immediately shuts down Seoul with a swift volley of damage boosted Zen Orbs to Toby. With only 30 seconds left on the clock, this is the final engagement from Seoul and they have a massive stockpile of ults at their disposal as they seek out the high ground for a second time. Mirror dives in far too aggressively, perhaps a mistake or perhaps he thought he had the support to stay alive, but nevertheless, Effect capitalizes and takes him down with ease. Rascal takes down both supports as Munchkin is forced into hiding with less than 10 seconds remaining. Moving in off screen, Sunba throws his D.Va bomb at the point in a last-ditch effort to stall things out. Munchkin is severely weakened once again but manages to recall into Jaehong's Transcendence just in time. A multitude of ults fail to find any picks of use as Effect's Deadeye is shut down by the Transcendence and Mickey's D.Va bomb is easily evaded. Keep an eye on Munchkin here in this moment as he is able to effortlessly patrol the backlines of the Dallas squad and exit at will without any consequences. Oh and yeah, I mean, he kills XQC again as well, because why not? As the rest of Seoul falls on the payload, Munchkin navigates his way to a nice stick on Harry Hook but is then finally taken out, but only after retaining an absurd 21-player kill streak. A truly remarkable effort from him in spite of the Dynasty's shortcomings with this offensive effort. Moving into Dallas's turn on the offensive side of things, we can notice that SEOUL is boldly attempting to use the Sombra in defending point A as well. On the opposite side, an interesting composition comes out from Dallas as they run 2 tanks, 2 DPS, and 2 healers. Of note, however, is that Rascal is trying out Reaper, whilst Custer is playing Moira into a comp where the tanks are more often than not going to be out of position upon diving in. One has to think that a Zen here would have been the more logical choice to start things out. What we can see right off the bat with this attack is that Rascal is putting himself in the best possible position to counter Fleta. Even without dealing all too much damage, his presence just outside of the Mega Health Pack is huge as those seeking the heals essentially have to come within lethal range of those shotguns. In spite of their best efforts at shutting him down, Fleta is still able to charge his EMP faster than any other ult in the game and successfully connects it with 4 members of the Dallas Fuel. Kills are traded back and forth, but it's Dallas who are able to pull through, winning the majority of their battles and moving on to make progress with the payload. Heading into the second stretch of the map with over 5 minutes left to push the payload has to be a huge boost in confidence for the Dallas team. Again, players make a conscious effort to try and shut down Fleta as XQC camps on a Mega Health Kit in hopes of preventing a hack. Trying to counter the ideas of Dallas, SEOUL chooses to engage early and instead hack the Mega Health Kit just to the side of the payload, giving them a sizable healing advantage moving forward. Both teams use their sound barriers, and yet another EMP comes in from Fleta that connects on everyone from Dallas. Despite this, Dallas is able to fight through it for a second time as even more ults are invested. SEOUL recognize the fight is all but over and decide to change things up prior to their next engagement. Fleta swaps over to the Soldier as a great way to counter the DPS of the Fuel from range. Munchkin continues to exercise his dominance on Tracer, surviving the dive from XQC and taking out effect in the process. The primary engagement continues just ahead of the payload as more ults are utilized, but not to much avail for SEOUL as Rascal does work on cleanup duty here. Custer activates his Coalescence slightly too late as he attempts to keep effect alive through his Deadeye. A regrouped SEOUL now floods onto the point in unison and gets the kills they need to send Dallas on the retreat for the time being. Just for the lols, Munchkin does find yet another stick onto XQC after he pops his Primal Rage. An early sound barrier comes in from Toby as SEOUL attempts to engage Dallas early on. But meanwhile, Effect flakes over onto the payload and forces the fight to disband as members of SEOUL turn around to deal with the most important issue at hand. I feel as though at this point I probably don't even need to mention it. You kinda just take it as a given that Munchkin is going to land at least one pulse bomb onto XQC every single teamfight. Despite his best efforts, however, the kills are traded in favor of Dallas and they get through the second checkpoint with time to spare. Moving into the next fight, we can see only Zunba and Rascal with ults at the ready, whilst Fleta, Jaehong, and Harryhook are not all too far behind. The threat of the visor is thwarted by Zunba as he knocks Rascal to the ground and forces out the sound barrier from Harryhook. In response, XQC does a great job here of diving SEOUL's backline and forcing out the Transcendence from Jaehong. With 2 minutes left, Dallas pick up the majority of the kills in the fight as SEOUL attempts to back up and preserve the rest of their ults for later use. Another extremely intelligent play from Munchkin is next on the agenda. As he notices the rest of Dallas diving ahead to greedily try and push SEOUL back even further, they leave Custer alone on the payload, ripe for the well-timed pulse bomb of Munchkin. Harryhook, having now swapped over to the Mercy, brings Custer back to life as Dallas decide to invest in this fight. XQC activates his Primal Rage but is entirely shut down due to the great positioning of SEOUL, as well as a neatly timed sound barrier from Toby. SEOUL does just enough to properly dive into Dallas and sends them packing. Just over a minute remains heading into the closing moments of the map as Dallas still need to push the payload another 22 meters. As Dallas re-engage, note that SEOUL has not a single ultimate stored for this fight, and they choose to play accordingly, turtling up and letting Dallas push into them. Another Coalescence from Custer forces out the Transcendence from Jaehong the very moment he acquires it, perhaps in a moment of desperation. The final ult on the side of Dallas comes out in what is a really ambitious visor from Rascal. It's one thing to enter that ultimate when a D.Va is in her mech on the opposing side of the battlefield, it's another thing entirely to enter that ultimate when all 6 members of the enemy team are staring you down from close range and ready to pounce. Now, with less than 20 seconds left and only Harryhook close to an ult for Dallas, they have one final attempt at a push in order to tie up the series and take SEOUL to a 5th map. As Dora asserted, they needed a miracle push if they were to take this map. A few swaps come out as the clock ticks down. We can see Custer swapping over to the Zen whilst Mickey goes onto Roadhog. Interesting choices in combination here as both are losing an element of mobility. Perhaps a Lucio would have been more fitting as to enable others to get back into the final fight even quicker. Hindsight is always 20/20, but immediately exemplifying just why a movement ability would have been beneficial, Munchkin narrowly misses the stick onto Custer, but it doesn't even matter as the blast radius was still enough to take him out. Now Dallas are well into their final push and are already missing a vital member of the team. Things start to get a little wild off screen as every remaining ultimate is traded out. First, Effect picks off both Fleta and Toby, the two members of SEOUL actually closest to their next ults. Zunpa picks off Rascal as Harry Hook activates his Valkyrie, and the fight now turns into a 4v4 scenario. You can see Harry Hook play this scenario really well in the heat of the moment, picking up a crucial target as everyone is kept alive and continues to find pick after pick. The sound barrier is forced out of Toby, and in this scenario, we can deduce that this is entirely just to keep himself in the fight, and not necessarily to buff the other SEOUL members nearby. Despite his investment, Toby is still the next to fall as he stored out the payload just long enough for a few members of SEOUL to push out of the spawn. In the meantime, we can see that Rascal is swapped over to the Sombra again here, as to be able to rush back into the fight as quickly as possible. The tactical visor from Fleta comes out at a great time and deals a significant amount of damage to those near the payload. Jaehoong's Transcendence comes out, but as we can see, Effect times his movement perfectly and one clips Fleta at an awkward angle thanks to the Discord from Custer. Really great teamwork from them. As the chaos ensues, pay attention to the swap coming out from Toby. He jumps off of the Lucio and onto the Bastion. This is such a smart pick as the position of the payload ensures that members of the Dallas team have very little cover to block the vast amounts of damage that could come in, especially effective considering the lack of a D.Va as well. Mirror stalls things out for as long as he can as Dallas push the payload within 10 meters of their goal, but as we can just make out, Toby has set up his turret mode now. Whilst he doesn't survive long, and although his name doesn't get credit in the kill feed, he unloads into Harry Hook and does a hefty amount of damage to Mickey, as SEOUL are now starting to swing this fight around, much to the surprise of Dallas who simply cannot catch a break this round. Munchkin takes out Effect as Rascal leaves the point momentarily, and that's it. That's the end of the map as SEOUL close out the series 3-1 in what was undeniably one of the most impressive defensive efforts in a long while. We can see simply from the players' reaction just how important this map was as the dichotomy of a win and a loss is on display. Dallas are exhausted as everyone from SEOUL is ecstatic that they were able to remain composed and pull out a map win against all odds. A great map to end an excellent series between two of the top teams in the league today. That's it for our analysis today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below and let me know if there are any particular maps you'd like to see in focus next. But as always, thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.